Welcome to March at Empirical's SD Learning Center. In the last video, I showed you how multiple individuals could work simultaneously in the same project drawing set in AutoCAD Electrical. In part 1 of this series, we explored how two users could draw a simple AC schematic cable simultaneously on two different AC schematics within the main project file using subprojects. After both subprojects were checked into Vault, a third user successfully updated and annotated the wiring diagrams. In part 2 of our series, I'll illustrate a more complex design change in a multi-user AutoCAD Electrical design environment. In this video, I'll demonstrate how two users can work simultaneously across different DC schematics in two separate AutoCAD Electrical subprojects to interconnect multiple circuits through a single cable. This is a DC schematic in the breaker control panel that user 1 is working through. It contains smart device tables that will be annotated with the SDS table tool, pre-wired protection outputs located in the middle, and a breaker control circuit up at the top. Each of these pre-wired circuits represents a control function within the control panel that will be wired into adjacent protection and control panels during design. All panel subprojects have similar design elements. All of these pre-wired protection outputs contain the master symbols that are used in conjunction with the SDS ref-only update tool in the SDS toolkit. You can find out more information on the SDS ref-only tool, master symbols, and reference-only symbols in the SDS help file located under the SDS Projects tab. Assigning master reference designations to symbols allows the lead designer to update all duplicate symbols referenced throughout the main substation project file during project updating. These protection output circuits will be represented differently when they're inserted and referenced into other panels. Knowing that, and because multiple users will need to work together without interruption, these protection outputs are pre-assigned master and reference-only designations during our AutoCAD Electrical conversion and placed on a separate drawing. For each user to have access to the reference circuits, a standalone drawing for all standard reference circuits is housed in our vault. When a standard is added or updated to the AutoCAD Electrical library, its reference-only circuits are added or updated in the master reference circuit drawing in our vault. To make these circuits available to everyone working in the project, we'll go to the Standards folder in Vault and create a copy of the standard reference circuit drawing. So I'll go ahead and close and not save here. Go to Vault. Now in the Primary Panels folder in our Standards library, I'll highlight the drawing, right-click and copy design. Copy to, and then I'll navigate to the folder where my substation project files are contained. Once I'm there, I'll go ahead and click copy. At this point, I would normally delete the copy of portion of the name during the project design, but I can do that later. Now that the drawing is in the main project folder, each user can right-click and select Get to get a working copy of the standard circuit drawing in their working folder. As user 1, I'll go to the drawing that's in the main project file folder, and I'll right-click and get a copy to my working folder. And then I'll right-click and go down to Go to Working Folder to access the drawing. View details to clean it up. There it is. The reference-only versions in this drawing are grouped by the standard from which they came from. So in this example, user 1 is working on the breaker control panel. So I'll find the reference-only protection outputs coming from every panel except for the breaker control panel. And in this example, we're working from the line protection panel standard. It's located right here. At this point, user 1 can begin copying and pasting reference circuits into the drawings based on the engineering markups. First, I'm going to go to the wiring diagram. And I'm going to go and zoom in on the terminal strip that user 1 and user 2 are going to be working from. User 1 is going to be connecting circuits from the line breaker panel to this RF terminal strip. This terminal strip is wired for trip 1, trip 2, and breaker fail circuitry. So now, user 1 can go back and start at the top with the first circuit. I'll simply select all the symbols, all wires, and the description bracket for this circuit. Right-click, do a copy with base point, and select the top of the wire as my base point for the circuit. Then, I'll navigate to the trip circuit drawing D02, and I want to zoom in to the top of the circuit where this protection output is going to be inserted. Locate the terminal where it's going to be inserted onto, and then delete the template circuit that's connected to the terminals. Delete that grouping, the grouping right next to it, and I'll also delete the drawing cross-reference information and the circuit description information at the top. Now by doing a Control V, I'll type in MID for midpoint and snap that circuit at the midpoint of that schematic terminal. The midpoint of that schematic terminal is where the connection point attribute for that schematic terminal is located. It's always important to check the connections to make sure that they're actually snapped to the connection points. This is the core design procedure in a nutshell. At this point, it's a matter of going between the reference circuit drawing and the circuits in the panel drawings and doing a Control-C, Control-V to copy all of these circuits into their main breaker circuits. So I'll grab the second circuit, and I'll go to the bottom trip circuit on the breaker control panel, delete the circuitry, delete the description and drawing cross-reference information, and snap this circuit to the midpoint as well. At the bottom here, the wire is not touching, so I'll select stretch wire and just stretch that wire to the connection point attribute of that schematic terminal. Again, I'll go back to the reference circuit drawing. Grab the next circuit that's based on the engineering markups that I have. Got my base point again. I'll zoom up to the top of this breaker fail circuit. And again, I'll unlock the stencil layer. Delete the geometry and the lines, as well as the drawing cross-reference and description information. Control V. Paste that in at the midpoint. I'll verify my bottom connection. Now you can see that the cable marker and the terminal are overlapping. So to fix that, I'll go to Scoot under the Edit Components tab, scoot my cable marker symbol up, and I'll also grab the grip of that wire and stretch it to snap to the midpoint of the schematic terminal. I'll move the bracket down and clean up these attributes to be aligned with the rest of the text in the circuit. Now, I'm not going to go and annotate the wiring diagram as user 1 because the cable is not going to be entirely complete yet. After both user 1 and user 2 check in their designs, the lead designer can go and do all the annotating, cabling, and troubleshooting all at the same time. This is going to conclude the work for user 1. So it's time to save and check in the breaker control panel sub-project in all its drawings. We'll right-click on the active project, go to the vault flyout and select check in all, and hit OK. Now I'll go ahead and activate the line protection panel as user 2. Just as in part 1 of this series, user 2 has been working through the line protection panel. User 2 also has a copy of the reference circuit drawing in their working folder to copy from. So once I get all those drawings checked out, go ahead and just check these drawings in, but keep them checked out in the project tree. Now I'll open up the DC schematic. So based on the engineering markups, I'm going to be pasting one circuit at this location right here. So I'll go to the reference circuit drawing and scroll up to the breaker control circuits. Based on the markups, this is the circuit I want. So again, I'll select all symbols, wires, and any miscellaneous geometry. Do a copy with base point. Go back to the DC drawing. Unlock the template layer and then go ahead and delete all lines, wires, geometry. And go ahead and paste that in at the midpoint. Go ahead and get rid of the default description and drawing cross-reference. And go ahead and move these descriptions and drawing cross-reference attributes up to the top of the circuit. Now to verify my connections, I know the top one's okay. When I look at the bottom one, I notice that my cable marker and my schematic terminal are overlapping. So what I can do is, again, use the scoot command under Edit Components to scoot both the cable marker symbol and the terminal. Grab that, snap the wire to the connection point attribute of the cable marker and also the connection attribute of the terminal, and scoot that down just to make a little more room. And because the wire expanded with that scoot, I actually know that this circuit is connected in AutoCAD Electrical. So now it's time to do some simple cable edits to match the engineering markups. User 1 has already done all their cable edits, so all cable markers have been edited to match the design markups. Go ahead and verify that there isn't any information that I want to share, and there isn't. So I'll go ahead and right-click on this cable and just select the parent and hit OK. Since this is the only circuit associated with this cable that is in this panel, it's time for user 2 to save and check in the line protection project file and all of its drawings back into Vault. So I'll save the drawing, close it out. Right-click on the active project to the Vault flyout and select Check It All. I don't need to go ahead and save this, so I won't, and I'll just close it out. Now I'll go to the Vault flyout, select Check It All, hit Yes, and OK. So once that's complete, it's time for the lead designer to update the schematics and wiring diagrams. So I'll go ahead and activate the main substation project file, and then go to, first I'll expand these windows, or these subfolders rather. Refresh it, you can see that they're actually not checked out. So now I'll go and, under the Vault flyout, check out all, and get the project and all the drawings from both sub-projects into my main substation project file. I'll go ahead and a quick check in the one line, but keep it checked out in the project. So in the first trip circuit, first thing I always want to do is I want to do an AE rebuild to rebuild the project scratch database. So right now it's incorporating the markups that user 1 and user 2 did separately into the main project file's project scratch database. Zooming up to the top circuit, we'll type SDSDref and select all three of those descriptions. In those three, right click, and you can see the drawing cross-reference and the drawing description updated based on the drawings. Moving on to D04, we'll zoom into the top here and do the same dref command. Select the terminal and the two drawing cross-references. And then finally, I'll go to the line panel. Run SDSDref again. And update the drawing cross-reference and the drawing circuit description. Now, these reference circuits also have drawing cross-references to the master symbols that they come from. So what I want to do here is run dref again and select all of the symbols that I used here to get their drawing cross-references to come in as well. What I'll quick do is surf on this symbol back to the master. So when the surf dialog box pops up, under the location column, I can see that I'm on 4.5, and all I gotta do is select the other 4.5, which represents the terminal pins, to surf to the master symbol. Type in SDSDref again, select it, and get my update. So after I've updated all the schematic cross-reference information and circuit descriptions, I'll be able to go to the wiring diagram. Just do one more verification before I do. And so to start, I will go to breaker control and a wiring diagram first. Make that the line protection panel. So I delete the template, and just like the last video, I'm going to go through and just do an annotation single pick from the SDS Projects tab, or panel WD tab, excuse me. I'll go ahead and select just the external side of these terminals to get the annotation that I want. You can see now the new cable annotation is coming in from the breaker panel side. Unlike the last video, I'll add these cables using the SDS AutoFan tool to get the cables to come in automatically. So I'll select that, I'll go ahead and do the cable distances from the terminal and then to the cable bubble, and I'll just select all with a window, and the cable just drops right in. Before I go back to W01 on the breaker panel, I'll go ahead and just reorganize some of these attributes and align things a little bit. Go ahead and update W01 here in the same way. Delete the template. Go to the STS Panel WD tab, Annotation Single Pick. Just pick down the terminal strip just like I did before. The great thing about using the SDS AutoFan tool is that the user, in this case the lead designer, can draw out all the cables on the wiring diagram simultaneously, even by just using the window pick method. You can annotate an entire side of terminals, run the SDS AutoFan tool, pick a command, and then window every single wiring annotation, set your defaults, close the command, and every cable will be aligned right from the get-go. So window that selection again, right click, enter a couple of times, and there's the cable. That wraps up part 2 of this 2-part series, working with AutoCAD Electrical in a multi-user design environment. Although these 2 parts varied in complexity and were narrower in application, they are far from the only examples of using this design approach. I hope this video gave you some ideas as to how you might successfully expand your current processes to integrate multiple users in your own AutoCAD Electrical design workflows. The key thing to remember is that when AutoCAD Electrical writes drawing data back to the Project Scratch database, as long as it senses a valid wire on a connection point, it will write that connection data back to the wire from to portion of the Project Scratch database. This allows you to make drawing additions using commands like simple copy and paste, and achieve wire connections using grip manipulations of the wires. The more you work with the AutoCAD Electrical software, the more you'll understand its limitations and its possibilities. In next month's video, we'll explore 2 different approaches to converting your current drawing standards from AutoCAD to AutoCAD Electrical. One approach is additive, and the other approach is supplemental. Thanks for stopping in again. See you in April with more AutoCAD Electrical content here at the Empirical SDA Learning Center.